I matriculated when I was in 1940 when I was 17, and I was sent to university for a year until I was 18. Then I went to join up. When I took my medical, I found I had a double hernia, and so I had to have an operation. That was in January 1941. I had the operation. It took me, that's 42. I had the operation, and then in those days it was quite a big op for a hernia. It had about 4 or 5 months recuperating, and eventually I joined up in June 1942. I was sent to Littleton to do my basic training. There was a bit of a hold-up. We were there for a year, waiting to go, getting very impatient. And then in June 1943, I was posted to Wonderpoort to do my EFTS training. From there to Waterkloof to do AFTS. I got my wings in January 1944. I then went to 11 OTU at Swartkorps for a couple of weeks, and from there down to Isipingo, 2 weeks at Isipingo, and back to Swartkorps, where I qualified. Then I got about a week's leave, and then I was sent up to Middle East to Cairo Air Force Base at Al Marza. And we waited around there for a while, and then eventually I was posted to, they developed 2 new squadrons which were formed, and I was posted to 10th Squadron. We were based at Itku initially, and we flew off to Syria, where we were in next to Aleppo, at an aerodrome there for a couple of weeks. Then back to Itku, and then I was on detachment at Mirza Matruh for 2 weeks, which is a lovely place with a lovely harbour. Sea sand was like Johnson's baby powder, and the water was a pale blue. Really lovely time. Back from there a little more time at Itku with a couple of weekends and so on in Alex, which was very good. Then we went to a place called Zavoya up in Libya, where we did a few shipping patrols and things, and the only dangerous thing I ever did in 10th Squadron was 2 trips to Crete, which were a bit dicey, but turned out okay. And from there it was back to Itku, back to Al Marza. We waited for a couple of weeks waiting for a posting, and then I was posted to 7th Squadron in Italy. First of all, we had to do sorry, I missed out one thing we had to do in Egypt was conversion to Spitfires at Abaswaya, which is on the Great Bitter Lake, just off the Great Bitter Lake. Then in Italy, there's another conversion onto Spitfires, I don't know why, but that was at Perugia. And from there, I was posted to 7th Squadron. We arrived in December 1944. Started flying in the beginning of January 45. There was no enemy aircraft in those days, so we did basically ground support, dive bombing, ground strafing, and that sort of thing. Now I'll have a break.
Yeah, now it's going very well. Yeah.
Is that all right so far?
Yeah, very well. Yeah. You can take your time, and there's no reason to rush or whatever, you know. You can elaborate also now on your stories, you know. You don't have to rush it off.
Yeah.
We've got lots of time. It's going very well, really. The sound is good, the image is good. No reason to rush. Did you have some other hairy missions before you were shot down, or not really? Yeah, some who had lots of flak and guys bailing and so on, yeah.
Okay, then in 7th Squadron, which was, to my mind, the best squadron, although everybody who was in any squadron, it was the best squadron. We had a CO was Bob Kershaw, who was a DSO, a very famous pilot that once had his picture on a stamp. And one of the things that we had at Forley was that we had a basement in the house, in the mess, the house which was used as a mess, and we turned this into a nightclub. And a friend of mine, Bill Matthews and myself, we went out in the Jeep, we were looking around, we saw a piano in a bombed house on the first floor, so we got a couple of other guys and we got the piano, brought it down, put it on the bonnet of the Jeep, drove it back to the mess, some steep concrete stairs going down. We pushed the piano down, this didn't seem to do too much damage, and set it up, and then we started a nightclub which we called the Seven Lights. So we sent, to get it started, we sent out one was Bill Matthews, who was quite a character, and the other guy was a very straight-laced chap. And Bill went to all the street corners and things and invited all the girls from there. And the other guy went to the town major and got them to bring all the elite along. They were invited. And the first Saturday night, they all turned up with their families. And they sat, there was dead silence because the elite sat on one side of the room and the lower classes sat on the other side, and they looked at each other, with hatred. And anyway, the booze flowed, and after a short while, everything evened up, and things started going very well. We always had 2 or 3 guys posted to supply drinks to the Haitais, especially to the families, to keep them occupied and not looking after their daughters too well. And we carried on. I remember one mama had we brought out, there was a lot of food put out, and there was one big platter, like this, full of sandwiches, and she had a carpet bag, and she just opened the carpet bag and did that. And this whole lot went into the carpet bag and took them home with her, Anyway, then that was one of the nice parts of it. There was another time when we were out on a patrol, doing a dive bombing patrol, and aircraft about, I think it was 2 in front of me, in the dive, it just exploded. Boom, wings folded up, and it went straight in. Not a very nice experience.
Yeah, and the guy was killed. The pilot was killed.
The pilot was killed, yeah.
Who was the pilot?
McCormack. And there was another occasion happened, I think it was just before or just after that, a similar occasion, and everybody was a bit worried about sabotage. But nothing more happened after that, so nobody ever found out what had caused it. Stop now?
Yeah.
Now should I get on with with when I was shot down?
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, but you can take your time, you can elaborate in detail, what happened, when you started your mission, whatever, And also of the aircraft. You didn't have your own aircraft, you must also tell that,
Anyway, from Forley, we went to Ravenna, which is on the Adriatic coast. And from there we kept on with our close support. And one day it was a very overcast day. I remember the cloud was low, about 1,000 feet. And there was debate as whether we should be sent out or not, but eventually I decided to go and do a armed recce, which meant going around looking for trouble and trying to eliminate it. We went out, we found nothing, and on the way back we saw movement on the ground, and we went into Strath, and suddenly all the flak in the world opened up. There was red balls and black puffs and white puffs and you name it. And I was flying not my normal aircraft. This one hadn't been, I don't think, trimmed very well. So it flew with a rather tortoise-like motion, and I was lagging behind, so I got most of the flak. And I remember looking at the left as I was going along, and I looked in the window of a farmhouse, the first floor window of a farmhouse. So I was quite low. And then my aircraft was hit, the engine seized, the engine caught fire, not the fuel tank fortunately, just the engine, and clouds of white smoke billowed out. I could see nothing in front of me, I could only see out over the wingtips. And on the left there were houses, on the right there was a plantation of, I think it was olive trees, and what was in front I didn't know. So I thought of bailing out, but as I pulled out, I thought I might have enough speed. As I pulled up, I got more flak, so I decided to land. And then I just said to myself, Lord, you've got her. When you're a pupil and you're doing various test programs, when you're finished, you would say to the instructor, you've got her, sir. And he would say, I've got her. So I just said, you've got her, Lord, and then I kind of relaxed and just kept on. I obviously turned off all the switches and did all the right things in that way. And then I wheels up, went in, and hit the ground. I think hell of a noise, and it bounced around and stood up on its nose and nearly went over on its back and came down again. And I think I was a bit dazed. I don't know whether it was a few minutes or a few seconds. When I got out, there were a lot of armed Germans rushing in towards me. So I thought the best thing to do was to hold up my arms and say, "Kamerad," which I did, and it was the correct thing to do because they came and searched me and then were going to take me away. And then I had a look, and then about 50 metres in front of me was the flood bank of a river, which is a very solid thing. So fortunately I didn't hit that. And also I found that the radio, the guts of the radio is just behind the cockpit, and that had been taken out by a cannon shell. So it was all very, very quite close. Yeah. Anyway, then I was taken away by these guys, taken to their CO, who was a major, and he could speak reasonably good English. And he asked me a few questions, and I said to him, well, you know, the war was just about over. He said he agreed the war was just about over, but he said they were Germans and they would keep fighting until they were told to stop. And anyway, he said that Goering, incidentally what I've been shot down by was the Goering Flak Regiment, a detachment from them, so that's why the flak was so heavy. And he said, well, Goering had said, any Allied airman shot down must be very well treated. And he said, if I had been shot down about half a kilometre to the east, I would have landed up with the SS, and he said that would have been tickets because they just shot anybody they got. Anyway, it took me, two guys stick around, wait around for a while, and then two guys came along, one with a Schmeiser submachine gun, and the other one with a pick and a shovel, which I didn't fancy too much. But anyway, they took me towards a wooded area. And I was wondering, but I was about 5 metres in front of them, so it's difficult to know what to do. Anyway, I thought, well, I'll just stick it out and see what happens. Anyway, they took me through and nothing happened, and they took me through to a double-storey building where there were a lot of Italian girls and German soldiers mulling around, and they put me in a room, upstairs room, with a guard outside and a guard under the window, and left me there for the night. And in the morning I had a bit more interrogating done to me. Then I was taken out and locked up in the back of a windowless panel van. And two Germans locked me in there, and we set off. They said they were taking me to POW camp. And I didn't fancy this because we were travelling by day, and I knew there were aircraft around just looking for something moving to shoot up. And I was locked inside this thing. But anyway, we eventually stopped towards evening, and they let me out. And then they were going to lock me up again. I said, no, man, let me stay out. And they said, well, I don't know how we were communicating, because they spoke German and quite a bit of Italian. I spoke very little Italian, no German, English and Afrikaans, but somehow or another we managed to communicate quite well. And I said, they said, well, look, if you promise not to escape in the night, give us your word of honour, we'll let you stay out. So I said, okay. And then we went into the farmhouse, and they found an empty farmhouse, found some bottles of vino, so we had a few drinks and got quite pally. And next morning, they allowed me to sit on the roof of the panel van with my legs over the back, with one of the other Germans sitting on top as a guard. We went along for a while, and then we met up with two more Germans, and they got chatting, and then we decided to stop and have lunch. And while we were having lunch, we found some more vino, so we had another little bit of a party. And I was getting on quite well with these guys, and I said, well, look, it's near the end of the war now, and all you guys are going to be coming into the POW camp, it'll be crowded like hell. Why don't you come back with me now, and then I'll give you a recommendation. And they talked this over, and I thought, well, it was quite a good idea. So I said, okay, we'll do that. So we came to an agreement whereby the only armament we had was the Schmeiser submachine gun and a Beretta pistol. So they said the Beretta would be, the Schmeiser would be communal. If we came across Germans, I would be their prisoner, and if we came across partisans, they would be my prisoner. So we turned around and set back for the lines. And we stopped for the night somewhere and had another little party. And then we carried on, and we came to a farmhouse, an inhabited farmhouse. It was getting towards evening, so we stopped and asked for if we could stay there, and they said, yeah, sure, that'll be fine. And we could sleep in the loft with a lot of straw and stuff. And they brought out the vino and some bread and cheese, and we had another little party. We had quite a lot of parties on this trip. And so then we had another little party, and then we went off to... meanwhile, one of them, Otto, I forget his surname now, he was a Feldwebel. He had a camera, so he was taking pictures of us. Photographs. And anyway, then we went and got into this loft and went to sleep. And they must have tipped up the partisans, because early next morning we were woken up by a fearsome-looking guy with a gun pointing at us, saying, Tedeschi, raus, raus, aus, because Tedeschi was the Italian name for the Germans. The Germans were terrified, but I picked up the Schmeiser and pointed at him and said, no, Tedeschi mio prigionieri, hoping that it was Italian, that they would understand, which they did. And they, after a bit of a face-off, they said, okay, come out. So we went out, and then they gave us a guide to take us through lines, because you could hear the shells bursting and machine gun, but it was really fluid at that time. And so this guy led us through, we managed to get through okay, met up with some Canadians, and they took over the Germans, and I gave them each a note saying that they'd saved my life and how good they were and what have you. And then they said, well, they gave me, Otto Wagner was his name, he gave me his camera. He said he knew that the Canadians would loot it from him anyway, and he'd rather I had it. So I took it, and that was the last I saw of them. I tried to get hold of them after the war, but it was hopeless. I mean, the Red Cross weren't interested, because there were about 30 million displaced people wandering all over Europe. And so I never got to hear of them again. But from there, then I walked back over the Po, back to met up with some people who took me to an aerodrome where I was put into a small aircraft and flown back to the squadron. And that was the end of my war.
Yeah, yeah. When did this happen? This was in March.
March, yeah, towards the end of March.
Yeah, yeah.
It was only about a month to go still.
That's a great story. I think you've told it very nicely. Yeah, no, it's a great story.
Do you think that's all right?
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. Now in the video I'm gonna put in the photographs, you know.
Yeah.
I also want to take a picture of the camera, you know, I can also put that in the video, yeah. No, I think it went well, Peter. There's nothing else that's incidental you want to tell. That you can think of something else interesting, nothing.
Oh, the only other one was with that there's a pingo where the thing came off, but I don't know if you want that.
Yeah, I can tell that one, yes. You can tell that one.
Okay, now.
Yeah.
At the OTU in Isipingo, I had quite a dicey experience. I was taking off in a P-40, and in the P-40 you always take off with your canopy open, and to close it in the P-40 you had a disc here with a little lug on, and you did this and it wound up the canopy and it came up and closed. And as I'd just taken off and I started winding this up, and there's a hell of a noise, a crash and a bang, and the whole aircraft shook. And then the control column just jammed in my hand. I had no forward movement. I had lateral movement, but no forward and aft movement. And I was at that angle, so I was just about to stall, so I quickly pushed the trimmer forward as far as it could go, which brought my nose down a bit. And then with almost full throttle, I was able to stagger along. And I made a very wide circuit, and I came in diagonally across the aerodrome, which was the wrong thing to do, but it was the only thing I could do. There was another aircraft coming in the correct direction. The duty officer was shooting off red very lights left, right and the centre, but I couldn't do anything else. I just kept on. Luckily the other aircraft landed before me. Anyway, I got down safely, and the duty officer came out in his jeep and started swearing at me. I think he got a hell of a fright. And I just waited till he'd finished, then I just pointed to the back, to the starboard rear. So he went round and had a look, and then he just drove off, didn't say anything more. And what had happened was that the canopy had come off and got over the tailplane like this and jammed the elevators. So there was no movement there. So anyway, that was quite fortunate.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, well, thank you.